Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the From the Booth podcast. My name is Mike, and once again, you guys, I just want to say a big thank you for how much we've been growing, for how many subscribers we've been getting. You guys have been crushing it on YouTube. Really appreciate that. As you guys probably noticed behind me, I kind of got a new layout. I kind of got a new setup. I changed up the logo. I got a banner art finally. Some people were telling me I needed to get that. So I kind of changed up the vibe, I guess you could say, of this channel. So let me know what you guys think. I kind of like it. I kind of like the way that it looks. But let me know what your guys' opinion on it is. But before we get into any of that, we do have an episode 2 intro. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to follow if you're on any podcast platform. And here we go. All right, in today's episode, we're going to cover the new Netflix documentary that is being made. We're going to cover my early predictions for NFL free agency. We're going to talk about Lamar Jackson and his situation with the Ravens. We're also going to talk about Danny Dimes and his situation with the Giants. Then we're going to have some other news that we're going to talk about, and we're going to kind of dive into those. But without further ado, guys, let's get right to the show. All right, so the first bit of news that I want to cover today is the announcement yesterday made by Netflix that they are going to be making a documentary called Quarterback. The documentary apparently gives unprecedented access into the lives and into the mic'd up scenarios of a quarterback. All three of these quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota, were mic'd up for every single game. And apparently, I guess a camera crew just kind of followed them around all year to just see kind of what was up with them. So I think this is really cool. I don't know if you guys remember, there was that Netflix show called QB1, and it had Justin Fields in one of the seasons, and it was kind of the same concept, but those guys were in high school, right? So they weren't achieving as much. They didn't have families. They weren't making millions of dollars. In the case of Patrick Mahomes, they weren't winning the Super Bowl, winning MVP, and winning Super Bowl MVP, which I think that's the really cool thing here, is that Mahomes had a fantastic season, and apparently it's just all been caught on camera. So that's really cool. Then you have Kirk Cousins, who is, I think, a good quarterback. No, not great by any means. And then you have Marcus Mariota, who is one of the worst. So I like the three kind of disparity levels to where we're getting one phenomenal quarterback, one good quarterback, and then one like really bad quarterback. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Marcus Mariota like leave the team at the end of the year? That's kind of why Desmond Ridder was starting games. Whatever. Who am I to judge? But yeah, so Netflix is doing a documentary, and I kind of wanted to talk about that and to give my thoughts. Like I said, I think it's this really cool idea. I think any content that gives us more of an inside look, gives us more depth to these players, I'm always going to be a fan of. And apparently, like, this is in cooperation with NFL Films. For those of you who aren't, how are you a football fan and not know NFL Films? They're great. They've been putting out amazing content for years. So good to see that the NFL Films and Netflix, they're kind of working with a big streaming service to give us fans like this kind of good show. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a show like Hard Knocks, where it kind of comes out once a week, and we kind of get like, maybe we get, 17, 20 episodes one week. I don't know. Maybe it's just going to be a 10 episode miniseries. I'm not totally sure. But I do think it's very interesting, and I do think that Netflix, they know what they're doing, partnering with the NFL. I feel like Netflix is kind of falling off a little bit, unfortunately. Stranger Things is definitely still going strong, but Netflix need another hit, right? And I think they got that with this show. So for Netflix, this is a big W. For fans, it's a big W. And I hope that it becomes like a yearly thing, where, and I kind of like the surprise of us not knowing until just now. But I kind of hope it becomes a yearly thing where, like, at the end of every year, 3 quarterbacks were just randomly mic'd up and filmed throughout the whole season, to see kind of what to do for the documentary. I kind of like that idea, and I would love to see like Aaron Rodgers, and for them to just catch his tantrums like on camera in 4K. That would be really cool for me. What else? I don't know. I think that this is really cool. I really liked it. I saw it yesterday. I think Ian tweeted about it. So I just want to kind of briefly discuss it with you guys and talk about it. But let me know what you guys think about the Netflix documentary down below. If you're on YouTube, if you're on my podcast platform, I get questions all the time like, hey, how can I reach you if it's a podcast? Just DM me on Twitter. I have my Twitter probably everywhere. So you can just DM me on Twitter, leave a comment, leave a like, whatever. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to the next segment. All right. So the next segment that we're going to talk about today is Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson, the former MVP quarterback, who is currently in a contract dispute situation with the Ravens. He wants a lot of guaranteed money. They don't want to give him a lot of guaranteed money is essentially how that boils down. I know it's obviously a lot more complicated than that, but the Ravens, for some reason, refuse to pay this man. And their justification for it is because they don't want to give him a lot of guarantees, right? They obviously want Lamar. They want to keep Lamar, but they're not willing to give him the guarantees that he deserves. And from Lamar's standpoint, you know, as a player, you have to look out for yourself. So he wants those guarantees, and I don't blame him for that at all. But I think that it's very interesting because some reports are saying that they're about $100 million apart. That's a lot. That's very hard to negotiate and find a middle ground when you're $100 million apart. There were 10, maybe 15. You can kind of find a little middle ground. Maybe the player could take a little bit less. The team could give a little bit more. 100 million is a lot. So I'm going to kind of talk about the situation and what I think is going to happen, what could happen, what is the best possible outcome for the Ravens, for Lamar Jackson. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get to that really quick before I kind of start. Big shout out to my boy TTB Ravens. He puts out the best Ravens content on YouTube, on Twitter. Go ahead and follow him. That's my boy. That's my dog. So if you want more Ravens specific content, go follow him. He's your guy. But anyway, let's go get into Lamar Jackson. So, like I said, Lamar wants to play for a new contract. Last year, Lamar tried to get an extension with the Ravens. They couldn't get it done. Played this year, got hurt this year, and my theory is that Lamar Jackson's injury wasn't as significant as his time out would suggest. However, he was being conservative because he wasn't invested in prior. He wasn't given those guaranteed money to go out and play and fight through an injury to potentially make it worse. So he had to look out for his long-term future. He had to look out for his financial future and, you know, remove himself from injuring it further. And I'm not saying he wasn't hurt. I'm saying that I think that he was cautious with his injury recovery because of that fact, right? And for the Ravens, you know, that might have cost them a playoff win. You know, you look at the first playoff game they had against the Bengals, the fumble in the jungle, as many people are calling it. All right, they lost that game by 7. That one play was a 14-point swing. Do you think Lamar fumbles at the 1-yard line for the Bengals to go take it 100 yards to the house? Probably not. So by that logic alone, you have the Ravens beating the Bengals in the playoffs. So as many of you know, Lamar is a free agent and by definition is allowed to sign with any team. However, the Ravens have a kind of in case of emergency break glass option here where they can franchise tag Lamar. And the franchise tag for quarterbacks is expected to be about $32-33 million. So definitely no chump change. Definitely nothing like that. However, it's only a 1-year thing. And it's not guaranteed past this year. And there's a lot of... That's not what Lamar's wanting. He wants a long-term guaranteed deal. And I feel he's deserved that. But that's not what the franchise tag is. It's a 1-year, like, $32 million deal. Good. Not what he's wanting, right? So the Ravens could franchise tag Lamar. Now, the problem with the franchise tag is Lamar, again, that's not what he wants. So if you franchise tag him, best case scenario, right, you franchise tag him now, he plays. Next year, this time, you're in the same spot. You're in the same spot with the guy, and you're going to have to go through all this shit again. Assuming, hopefully, Lamar next year plays well and stays healthy, you're probably going to have to pay him more, right? Because then he says, okay, I've proven to you I can stay healthy. I've played good football. Pay me more money. And you really don't have any leverage with Lamar. Like, you really don't. So the Ravens probably are just going to put themselves in the same spot this year I believe you can franchise tag a guy 2 years in a row. I think is the cutoff. Um, don't quote me on that, but I'm not totally sure. So another interesting nugget about this Lamar situation is that Lamar Jackson is his own agent. He's going to negotiate his own contract. Him and his mom are the ones that negotiate his deal, and so not having a quote unquote real agent, I don't necessarily think it hurts Lamar, but I think it makes the situation more complicated and it delays things a little further, right? I feel like if he had a real agent, they could speed things up and they could probably get things done a little bit faster. That's not to say that he's doing the wrong thing, having him and his mom negotiate his contract, but I think that it makes it a little bit more complicated, if you guys know what I'm saying. So here's, I think, how I see this going down, right? The Ravens have proven and they've shown through their actions that they are not willing to give Lamar a long-term guaranteed contract. And from their perspective, they see Lamar's play style, I believe, as very risky, as very his very what's the word I'm looking for? Aggressive, and they think that it's probably easier for him to get hurt, which that's understandable. A predominantly running quarterback, well, not predominantly running, yeah, predominantly running quarterback could very easily take a hit, tear an ACL, do this, do that, right? That I understand. But at the same time, dude, like, okay, Lamar's won an MVP. He's consistently been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL since his second or third year in the league. Yeah, you got to pay him. Like, there's just no way around it. Like, even the Cardinals, Kyler Murray hasn't done jack shit of what Lamar's done, and they paid Kyler. Now, do I totally agree with the Cardinals paying Kyler? No. But even they understood, like, hey, this guy is who we've decided to be our franchise quarterback. We got to hand him the big bucks. That's just the reality in the NFL. When you have a guy who's your franchise quarterback, you got to pay him the big bucks. You got to hand him a blank check, right? And the Ravens aren't doing that with Lamar. So that's a bit worrisome if you're a Ravens fan. If you're Lamar Jackson, if you're the Ravens organization, right? It's kind of crazy. So how do I see this playing out? I see one of two scenarios happen, and I think that one of these two scenarios is best for both Lamar and for the Ravens organization, right? I see the Ravens organization trying to franchise tag Lamar. They're going to give him the franchise tag, and they're going to say, hey, we're going to franchise you this year. We'll go through this next year. Cool. Let's do that. All right. Lamar, at that point, can decide, all right, do I want to play 1 year for $32 million and prove that I can stay healthy, prove that I can play good quality football? Or do I want to say, fuck that, not play on the franchise tag? Now, he can definitely do that. He can refuse to play on the franchise tag. That would be a bit risky. Deshaun Watson did that a few years ago before his whole trouble, let's just say. He decided not playing the franchise tag because he wanted a longer deal and he wanted to be he wanted to be traded. That's a little different, but yeah. So Lamar could decide not to play in the franchise tag, and then that opens up a whole nother can of worms. Because my belief is, and you guys can correct me in the comments down below if I'm wrong. My belief is if a team franchise tags you when you're a free agent, you can't go sign with another team, because they kind of hold, like the Ravens kind of hold his rights. So if they franchise tag him, he kind of has to play on the franchise tag, whatever. So I think the Ravens are going to try to strong arm him to play on the franchise tag, which is obviously not something Lamar wants. Another thing that they could do is, and I see this, you see this a lot in basketball, but I feel like it could happen in football as well. You could almost do like a sign and trade where you trade Lamar Jackson and you give him first you give him the long-term deal, give him the contract, then you trade him to a different team and they pay the money, right? Because clearly the Ravens don't want to pay all that guaranteed money. So you work the deal, do whatever, find the compensation from whatever team, trade him. Now, you might be thinking, what team is going to pay for Lamar? Well, it would need to be a team that A, needs quarterback, duh. You need a team that B, has a good enough draft capital, B. C, you're looking for a team that has money, right? Obviously, the issue with Lamar right now with the Ravens is money. So if your team doesn't have money, you can't get Lamar. So that rules out like the Bucks, for example. But some teams that I think, if he were to get traded to, would be the best options. I'm going to say Washington's a decent option. They need a quarterback. They have okay draft capital. They've got a decent amount of money. Detroit's got good draft capital. Detroit maybe needs a quarterback, but I think they like Jared Goff, and I think they're going to devote their resources elsewhere on that team. Indy, Jim Irsay, I mean, they got the 4th overall pick. Jim Irsay is aggressive, as I've said before, and I think that, he wants a quarterback, obviously, and then the Ravens could draft another one with the 4th overall pick, so that trade compensation-wise could work out. But I think the best option and the clear-cut option that's been circulating around Twitter and the internet recently is Atlanta. Atlanta has picks, they have money, and they don't have a quarterback. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen those photoshops of Lamar in the Falcons jersey, but he looks dope as shit in a Falcons jersey. If he were to get traded, which I'd give it probably a 30-40% chance. I'd give it like 25 actually. If he were to get traded, I'm guessing it would be to the Atlanta Falcons. But this Lamar Jackson situation is very interesting to me. And I wish Lamar the best of luck. Honestly, I'm Team Lamar here. He deserved that money. Like, go get your money, King. And if the Ravens don't want to pay him, right, then you got to pay your franchise quarterbacks. It sucks, but it is how it is. So would you rather maybe overpay Lamar a little bit, or would you rather have fucking Tyler Huntley start 17 games? I mean, that's just the reality of it. So I'll talk more to TTB and try to get more information for you guys. Maybe do like a little update recently in the near future. Maybe if something happens with Lamar. But until then, that's kind of the Lamar Jackson situation for you guys. What do you guys think about that? Whose team are you on? Let me know down below. I love hearing it all. Let's go to the next segment. All right, so transitioning from one quarterback contract controversy to another quarterback contract controversy. Damn, try to say that 5 times fast. We've got Daniel Jones, a.k.a. Danny Dimes, a.k.a. Vanilla Vic is what they call him in the streets. Similarly to Lamar, he is in a contract dispute, and he's kind of yes, but the situation is very different. So let me kind of explain the situation with Daniel Jones. So similarly, they're both upcoming free agents, and that's, the contracts ended. The Giants famously didn't pick up Daniel Jones' 5th-year option before this season, making him a free agent. And in terms of Daniel Jones, right, is he nearly as good as Lamar? Absolutely fucking not. However, Daniel Jones may have better timing because in his make-or-break year, in his money-making year, had the best year of his career and won a playoff game, things that he had not done up until that point. Now, the key component in that change in his game was obviously the Giants hiring head coach Brian Daboll. Came in, completely renovated his career, completely made him a new player, got rid of the turnovers, which had been his kryptonite throughout his whole career, made better decisions, he was more accurate, used his legs more efficiently. Like, everything you want happened last year. In my opinion, majority due to Brian Daboll, right? But Daniel Jones is in need of contract extension, right? And if you're the Giants, you're in a very tricky spot because reportedly, Daniel Jones wants $45 million fucking dollars. And that is insane. That is about $5 or $6 million less a year annually than Patrick Mahomes makes. But he really does have all the leverage here. Again, won him a playoff game, played the best ball of his career. The Giants have a lot of free agents. They have a lot of free agents. And who do they devote their financial resources to is their question. Is Daniel Jones a good quarterback? I don't think so. I really am pounding the table that I think it's all Brian Daboll. I don't think Daniel Jones is the long-term guy. I don't think that he's the future, that he's a guy that can go win you a Super Bowl. Sorry, I'm not a Daniel Jones fan. But again, it's just so hard because if you're the Giants, it's like, okay, do we overpay for Daniel Jones or do we have fucking Sam Darnold at quarterback, right? Because obviously you're not going anywhere with Sam Darnold. You did go somewhere with Daniel Jones. You won a playoff game, right? Granted, it was against Kirk Cousins in prime time, so it's basically an auto W, especially when he's dumping the ball down on 4th down, whatever. But it's very difficult, right? It's very difficult to figure this out because if you're Daniel Jones, maybe there's a team out there that's desperate enough to give you a lot of money. Maybe the fucking Colts or the Texans, who need a quarterback desperately, are going to hand him a blank check. And if you're the Giants, you don't want to lose Daniel Jones, right? like I said, with Lamar, you franchise tag him, give him $32 million. But even $32 million, I feel like is way too much for Daniel Jones. So I think the Giants are going to franchise tag Daniel Jones. Will he play on it? I don't know. But I think if you're Daniel Jones and you're making $32 million, you have to have some self-awareness to just be like, okay, this is good enough. Like, I'm making $32 million to be a not top 10 quarterback. I'm good. Whatever. So then that leaves the question, if you're the Giants, what do you do with Saquon Barkley? Saquon Barkley's a free agent. I would not recommend... See, here's the thing. I would not recommend giving Saquon a huge contract, but again, I think franchise tag is a good option for a running back for a one-year deal. I believe the franchise tag for a running back is $19 million, $20 million, which Saquon might make in a long-term deal over the course of a few years. But who's more? But here's what you gotta say: who's better? Saquon. Who's more important to the offense? Probably Saquon. Who has proven that they can be more consistent throughout their career? Saquon. Now I understand like quarterback as a position is way more important than a running back, but man, I don't know if Daniel Jones is the guy to do that to. So if I was the Giants, I'd probably franchise Daniel Jones and pray Saquon resigns. I don't know, man. Because then you got to think too, if you're paying Daniel Jones all this money, you already don't have fucking weapons. How are you going to get this man weapons if his best weapon, Saquon, is going to leave in free agency? So it's very difficult. The Giants are in a very, very tough spot right here. I would not want to be a Giants fan right now. You got shit to figure out. The good thing is the Giants have their coach, right? And that's what a lot of teams fuck up on, is they don't have their coach. They don't know what the hell they're doing, so to speak. But I think you're in a difficult spot if you're the Giants right now. So pray for your local Giants fan if you can. And let's go ahead and get to the next segment. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get into our next segment, the one that you probably all came here for, the one that you've been waiting for me to talk about this whole podcast episode, which, by the way, if you guys have stayed for the majority of this episode, big shout out to you. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great week. I hope that regardless, but I just want to tell you that if you stayed, obviously. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the free agency. So I have a list categorized by position of 50 top free agents, and I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my list of where I think they'll land. I'm going to save the financial stuff for later for two reasons. A, if I talked about finances, I'd be here for a fucking 2 hours, and I don't think you guys want to sit through a 2-hour podcast. B, a lot of times with the financials, you kind of need the first dominoes to fall to kind of gauge where the other ones are going to fall, right? To see, okay, who reset the market, what relatively skill-wise, what this guy getting paid. So I'm not going to play that game. I'm not going to do the predictions because my first few could be wrong and then the whole thing just is goofed, right? So I'm not going to go through my deals just yet. Maybe when the first few dominoes fall and I do this episode in like a month or two, then I could say, oh, so-and-so is going to have 3 years, whatever, right? Because that's how agents play this game. I'm not going to do that just yet. But I'm going to go down quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, et cetera, all the way to corner at the end. Give you guys my list. Let me know what you think of my predictions down below, and give me some of your predictions. I'm very excited to see what you guys have to say as well. Starting off with the most important position, the quarterback position. We already talked about Lamar. We already talked about Daniel Jones. Not doing that right here. Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield re-signs with the Rams. I think he saw how good Sean McVay was for his career. I think he wants to replicate that also with the Stafford injury. Who knows how many games he's going to play next year. And additionally, maybe Stafford retires after next year. Who knows? But I think Baker Mayfield understands that Sean McVay is his career lifesaver. He's going to stay in Los Angeles. Derek Carr is going to the Jets. The Jets need a quarterback desperately. They have a great team behind them. And I don't think that they want to give up draft capital for Aaron Rodgers. I think Derek Carr going to the Jets, he just had a meeting with them this past week. Apparently it went mutually good on both sides. There's mutual interest. I think Derek Carr goes to the Jets. Geno Smith re-signs with the Seahawks. There's not too much here. I think Geno Smith is more valuable to the Seahawks. Or I think the Seahawks see Geno Smith as better than any other team sees Geno. Because Geno's been in the building for about 4 or 5 years. Obviously had his past year as a starter. And there's a lot of other teams. The only other team that makes sense is the Buccaneers because of Dave Canales going to be the Bucs offensive coordinator. But the Bucs don't have money. So not going to happen. Jimmy Garoppolo, speaking of the Buccaneers, I think he goes to the Buccaneers for the second time in his career, replaces Tom Brady. The reason I say the Buccaneers is because they need a fucking quarterback bad. They have Kyle Trask right now, and they're not going to be able to spend money. So they're not going to be able to get one of the big dogs. But Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be dirt cheap, so they could probably pick up Jimmy Garoppolo in free agency. And then Sam Darnold, I think Sam Darnold goes to Arizona, kind of signs the deal to make him a half-of-the-year quarterback. Because right now, Kyler Murray is hurt. Colt McCoy is hurt. Trace McSorley's a free agent. They don't have a fucking quarterback in Arizona right now. So Sam Darnold, for the first 8 to 10 games of the year, will probably be the guy in Arizona. Going on to running back, our guy Saquon Barkley is going to the Buffalo Bills. Now, the reason I say this is because the Bills understand that their biggest weakness right now is they can't run the ball, like, at all. And if they want a running back who can control the clock, who can make great plays, who can be a great pass catcher, who can do all of that, it's Saquon Barkley. Now, financially speaking, is it going to be a little difficult for Buffalo? Most definitely. But they can make a few cuts. They can make a few move arounds, whatever. They can get it done. David Montgomery is going to go back to the Bears. It's kind of a thing where I just don't think the league as a whole values David Montgomery too much. And the Bears have an ass ton. You're going to see the Bears a lot on this list. It's not because I'm a homer. It's because the Bears have an ass ton of money. They have like $100 million to play with. So they're going to sign some guys, right? They're going to get some guys. Jamal Williams, going back to Detroit. He loves Detroit. Detroit loves him. It's pretty simple logic there. Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs is going to go to the Carolina Panthers. Now, Frank Reich taking over at the Carolina Panthers obviously wants to get a lot of talent in there. And I think Dante Foreman and Sam Hubbard are good, but I don't think either of those guys are workhorse, legit RB1s. I think they are more complementary pieces. It's kind of what they were intended to be with Christian McCaffrey before he left. So I think Josh Jacobs gets his payday, gets to go be the guy in Carolina alongside a rookie quarterback. They're gonna want to surround their rookie quarterback with as much talent as they possibly can. Miles Sanders is going to re-sign with the Eagles. There's not too much doubt there. And then Tony Pollard is also going to re-sign with Dallas. All right, let's go to the receivers. Darius Slayton. I think he re-signs with New York, but again, that just very much depends on what the fuck they do with Danny Dimes and Saquon. Obviously, those guys are top priority over Darius Slayton. So they re-sign both of those guys. They probably don't have any money left over for Darius Slayton. Maybe he comes back cheaper. I don't know. But I think he'll re-sign with the Giants. DJ Chark re-signs with Detroit. I think Jacoby Myers goes to Chicago. The Bears need receivers, and they need receivers badly. I think he goes to Chicago. Juju stays with the Chiefs. The best thing for him, A.J. Brown was right. The best thing for him in his career was Patrick Mahomes, and he is not going to want to leave Patrick Mahomes. So he's going to stay right there. I think Michael Thomas ends up going to the Green Bay Packers. I think that Aaron Rodgers is probably going to come back, more likely than not, to the Packers. And so you got to get him receivers. You saw Christian Watson kind of turn it on last year. And if Michael Thomas can capture at least some of what he was a few years ago, I think that would make Aaron Rodgers a very, very happy camper. And additionally, you have to invest in your investment. You're paying Aaron Rodgers $50 million a year. You might as well give him some receivers to work with. And I think Odell Beckham ends up going to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think they wanted to sign him for just the second half of last year like they were rumored to do. But I think they will sign him for the full season again. For tight end, I think Dalton Schultz goes to the New York Jets. You want to give new quarterback Derek Carr or whoever the new quarterback is weapons to play with, especially a tight end. I think the Jets have decent receivers, but they need a tight end threat in my opinion. Evan Ingram is going to go back to the Jaguars, pair up with Trevor Lawrence once again. I think Hayden Hurst goes to the Denver Broncos. I think Mike Gesicki goes to Dallas. I think they want to replace Dalton Schultz with a similarly receiving tight end. And then Robert Tonyan goes back to Green Bay. In terms of offensive tackle, Mike McGlinchey, I think he goes to Miami. I think that Orlando Brown stays in Kansas City. They saw how valuable he was in the Super Bowl and how well he played. And let me tell you, Orlando Brown made himself a lot of money during that Super Bowl. So he's going to stay a Chief. They're going to re-sign him. And I think that Taylor Lewan, the recently released Titan, is going to go to the Chicago Bears. In terms of interior offensive line, Connor McGovern also going to the Chicago Bears. Man, the Bears are going to spend. The Bears need to spend a lot of money here. Okay, like you got to understand, they're going to spend a lot of fucking money. Next, in terms of interior offensive line, I have Trey Turner. I think he's going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Will Anderson. I think Will Anderson stays in Arizona. And Drake Brendel. I think he stays a 49er. Now let's go to edge rushers, the sexy position. Nobody cares about offensive line. Let's go back to the pass rushers. Brandon Graham re-signs with the Eagles. I think a lot of the Eagles free agents are going to want to run it back. They know if they were this close to winning the Super Bowl, they can do it if they just stay. Jadeveon Clowney is going to go to Green Bay. Jadeveon Clowney's bounced around the league a lot. He's been, on the Texans, on the Seahawks, on the Browns, a lot of teams. But I think Jadeveon Clowney wants to go to Green Bay and think that he's going to be part of the Super Bowl run, when in reality, we all know Green Bay's not going to make the playoffs again next year. I think Marcus Davenport is going to go to the Houston Texans, and I think Yannick Ngakoue is going to go to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the reason I have the Cardinals signing Yannick Ngakoue, again, let's think Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon came from the Eagles, great defensive line. I think he's going to want to invest a lot of money into the defensive line. He's going to pay Yannick Ngakoue an exorbitant amount of money to be the guy in Arizona. How will that work out? We have no idea. All right. De'Aaron Payne is going to go to the Chicago Bears. The Bears need defensive tackle really bad. Like, I don't know if you guys watched the Bears last year. They need D-tackle really bad. Okay. Fletcher Cox going back to the Eagles. Javon Hargrave is also going to sign with Arizona. Again, I think they're just going to spend their money on defensive line. You got to rebuild that defense. Jonathan Gannon understands how important defensive line is. Go back to Arizona. Tyson Alualu, I think, is going to go to Washington. They're going to need some replacements on the D-line when De'Aaron Payne leaves, maybe when Jonathan Allen leaves later. Let's go to the linebacker position. Leighton Vander Esch, I think he stays in Dallas. I don't really think that there's a market for him much elsewhere. Tremaine Edmonds, I think Tremaine Edmonds goes to Detroit. I think the Lions are going to invest in that defense. They're going to improve the front seven. They're going to improve the secondary. I think Trey Edmonds, is a good coverage linebacker, which is something I think they struggled with last year. He's going to Detroit. Drew Tranquil, I think he's going to go to the Los Angeles Chargers. And Levante David, he's going to Philly. He is going to help improve that Philly linebacking core that I think was definitely the most lackluster part of their defense. Let's go ahead and do that. Byron Murphy, he's going to re-sign with Arizona. I don't really think there's much of a market for Byron Murphy, unfortunately. Eli Apple's going to Minnesota. They have a new defense coordinator, Brian Flores. They need guys who can cover. They need guys who can be on an island. If by not his trash talk alone, I think Eli Apple can survive, cannot die in man coverage. So that's good. James Bradbury, again, going back to the Eagles. I have a lot of these Eagles free agents going back to the Eagles to run it back, whatever. Marcus Peters is going back to the Ravens. I don't think he wants to team hop like he did prior. And I think the Ravens are going to pay him a decent amount of money because they're probably not going to give it to Lamar. Anyway, then Pat Pete, I think Pat Pete goes back to Minnesota. He probably doesn't want to switch around spots too much in his career. And I think the incoming defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, is very intriguing for him. Let's go to safety. Jesse Bates. I think Jesse Bates goes to Dallas. Jerry Jones is going to make some splash moves this year in free agency. I think Jesse Bates is one of them. Do I think that there's a chance in hell that Jesse Bates re-signs with Cincinnati? Fuck no. But I think that the Bengals are going to spend their money on Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, who in my opinion are more valuable and more worth the money than Jesse Bates would be as a safety. Because trust me, I'm a Seahawks fan and we're paying Jamal Adams a lot of money tonight to play football. It's not fun. So pay your quarterback, pay your receiver. Jesse Bates has pretty much made it clear that he's not going to take a pay cut, so I don't think he's going back to Cincinnati. Have him going to Dallas. Jimmy Ward, I think, is going to the 49ers. Back to the 49ers, rather, Mike Edwards, I think, is going to Chicago. The Bears need safeties. Eddie Jackson is banged the fuck up at free safety, which is kind of that position that Mike Edwards plays. And then obviously they have Jaquan Brisker, who I really like. I think he's going to be fine. Jabril Peppers for the New York Giants. I think he's going back to the New York Giants again. But the Giants free agencies, they're so up in the air. I have no idea what's going on with the Giants and their shit. So Who knows? But that's my free agency predictions. I'm going to come back to this video when free agency is over and see how many I got right. I'll do like a recap video for you guys. Let me know if you guys agreed with my picks or if you had different picks down below, or tweet at me or DM me. Any of those options will suffice. And yeah, let's go ahead and get to the next segment. All right, so we have a bit of breaking news that just dropped about 10 minutes ago. Babe, wake up. New Ari Memoir tweet. The Broncos are hiring former Cardinals defensive coordinator Vance Joseph as their new defensive coordinator. I think we talked about in the last episode that some defensive coordinator interviews were going on. Vance Joseph lands back in Denver, place where he was just the head coach a few short years ago. And I like the move. I think Vance Joseph is a quality defensive coordinator. Don't let what he did last year with the Cardinals fool you. He's a lot better than that shit. Cliff was just running a madhouse. The Cardinals had no talent on defense. The Broncos have a lot of talent on defense. I think he'll be fine. My only requirement is that we get Sergio to do his introductory press conference, because obviously those two go hand in hand. Love that. But no, I think Vance Joseph going back to Denver is really good. Like I said, and like I've been saying, Sean Payton is going to want to hire a quality veteran defensive coordinator. He's not going to hire no young buck. He's not going to hire an up-and-coming. No, he's going to hire a guy who's been a defensive coordinator before, been a head coach before, obviously, and knows what he's doing, right? So I like the move for Vance Joseph. I think it's a chance. If you're Vance Joseph, it's actually really good because it gives you an opportunity to have a much better roster, much better talent around you. And let's say the Broncos defense kicks ass for the next 2-3 years. He could be positioning himself for another head coaching job. So it's very, very good for him. I think if you're a Broncos fan, you have to like this as well. You really have to have, if you're a Broncos fan, you really just want to have a guy that's just not going to fuck them up, right? They're probably going to be top 5, top 10 regardless. So as long as they don't do anything to totally fuck it up, I think you're good. I think you're chilling. But yeah, so like this move for everybody involved, and let's see where it goes. All right, you guys, and that is going to do it for today's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Want to just say once again, I totally appreciate all the support that you guys have been showing the pod on YouTube and on Anchor. We've been getting a few more listeners, but YouTube has been really crushing it right now. So just want to say a big thank you to you guys once again. You guys keep me encouraged. You guys keep me wanting to make this content, and I couldn't thank you enough. So this is going to do it for this episode. I probably will have another episode out on Monday. So enjoy your guys' weekend. Have fun. Do whatever you got to do. Please stay safe. And have a good one. Peace out, guys.